You are not poor because of bad luck, not fat because of your genetics, not stuck because of destiny. The real reason? Your mind has been conditioned to surrender. You were taught, by pain, failure, repetition, that your actions do not matter. So you stopped trying. You buried your hunger. You softened your ambition. And now you're drifting. Most people are not broken. They're trapped in a story they never wrote. A story where they are the victim, not the author. But what if that story is a lie? What if the cage you've been trapped in all this time isn't locked? What if your beliefs, not your circumstances, are what's keeping you down? This isn't motivational fluff. This is real science. This is learned helplessness. It rewires your behavior to expect defeat, to expect disappointment, and to stay small. And here's the catch. It doesn't happen overnight. It's subtle. It creeps in. One failure, one rejection, one broken dream at a time. And before you realize it, your mind has been trained to expect the worst. But that wiring can be changed. The same way it was built, through repetition, through belief, and through action. Today is the day you reclaim that power. In the 1960s, psychologist Martin Seligman ran an experiment that revealed one of the most disturbing truths about human behavior: how quickly we give up when we think nothing we do matters. He divided dogs into three groups. One group sat in a cage and was left alone. The second group received painful shocks, but they quickly discovered they could stop the shocks by pressing a panel. Their actions had consequences, and they learned control. But the third group? They got the same shocks, but the panel in their cage didn't work. No matter how hard they tried, the pain continued. What they didn't know was the panel in the second group's cage controlled theirs. They were helpless. And worse, they believed they were. Later, all dogs were given a chance to escape by hopping a low barrier. Groups 1 and 2 escaped instantly. Group 3? They didn't even try. They had the ability. They just didn't believe it. And that belief made all the difference. This is the most dangerous kind of prison. The one where you hold the key, but you're too conditioned to use it. It's not the environment. It's not the pain. It's the learned belief that your actions don't matter. That's what keeps you trapped. The scariest prison is the one with no walls. That's what happened to the third group of dogs. When given a way out, they refused to act. The pain wasn't unfamiliar. It was expected. The possibility of change, irrelevant, because they had learned one thing: nothing I do matters. That belief turned intelligent animals into passive victims. It is not the pain that breaks us. It's the loss of agency. You felt this too. Rejected after applying for jobs, ignored after trying to connect, failed after dieting for months. Eventually, you stop. Not because you cannot succeed, but because a quiet voice inside says it won't matter. That voice isn't truth. It's a conditioned response. And just like the dogs, you've internalized your past into a blueprint for the future. The barrier is low. You can step over it, but you won't until you believe you can. What's wild is that most people are waiting for someone to come along and push them over the barrier, but no one's coming. This is your mind's cage. This is your belief to undo. The pain is real, but it is not permanent. Your perception of it is what gives it power. Change that, and the barrier disappears. Think back. How many times did you give something your all, and it still wasn't enough? Maybe you studied for weeks and still failed the exam, ate healthy, worked out, and still hated what you saw in the mirror, gave someone love, and got silence in return, so you stopped trying. And then you built a story to protect yourself from more pain. I'm just not good at relationships. I'm not smart enough. I'll never be fit. But these aren't facts. They're defense mechanisms. They're shields built out of disappointment. Over time, they calcify into identity. And once you believe them, you act in ways that reinforce them. You expect rejection, so you avoid connection. You expect failure, so you barely try. You expect struggle, so you settle. This is how people get stuck, not by failure, but by the story they tell themselves after. But stories can be rewritten, and this one, it's killing your potential. The real tragedy isn't the failure, it's what you make that failure mean. Your life is shaped not by the event itself, but by the narrative you assign to it. And the good news? You're the author. You can change the plot. You can reclaim the pen, starting now. The biggest trap isn't failing, it's believing that failure defines you. You try something once, it doesn't work, and instead of adjusting your approach, you label yourself lazy, unlovable, unworthy. Then you start to identify with it. You say, that's just who I am. And the moment it becomes identity, you stop fighting it. You start defending it. You make peace with the prison, because prisons are predictable, even if they're painful. You say, I'm not a morning person, so you never try to wake up early again. I'm not good with money, so you stop budgeting. You surrender your future to a label that never belonged to you. And over time, it becomes true, not because it was always true, but because you stop challenging it. The lie becomes you. But here's the truth. You were never born broken. You were taught to feel broken. And what is learned can be unlearned. This identity you've adopted, it's not set in stone. It's a script you've memorized from years of repetition. Tear the script, edit the lines. Become someone new, not by pretending, but by acting differently. Belief follows behavior. Identity follows action. Reclaim your narrative. And write a character who fights back. Bob and Lily. Same company. Same layoff. Two completely different lives. When the company downsized, Bob saw the end. He said, I'm not good enough. He spiraled. Stopped applying. Drifted into depression. But Lily? She paused. Grieved. Then reframed. She said, this sucks, but it's temporary. She updated her resume, started networking, found a new job. The event was the same. The interpretation was everything. Bob believed the failure was permanent, universal, and personal. Lily believed it was temporary, specific, and external. One got stuck. One moved forward. This isn't about toxic positivity. Both felt pain. Both were scared. But one had the mental framework to navigate the storm, and the other didn't. Your explanation style is your lifeline. If you always blame yourself, if you believe it will never end, if you think it ruins everything, you'll stay stuck. But if you change the story, you change the outcome. Lily's resilience wasn't genetic, it was learned. And so is yours. Your default narrative isn't permanent. It can evolve, but only if you choose to challenge it. Bob surrendered. Lily rewrote. Which one are you becoming? Reframing is not wishful thinking. It is survival. It is a choice to interpret reality in a way that strengthens you instead of crippling you. When you get rejected, your mind might say, I'm unlovable. That's the old script, the victim script. But reframing challenges that. It says, it wasn't a match. That doesn't mean I'm broken. When you fail a test, old thinking screams, I'm stupid. Reframing whispers, this is data. I need to study differently next time. It doesn't ignore the pain, it gives it meaning, meaning that keeps you moving. Because here's what most people don't realize. Your brain is always telling a story. If you don't edit it, it becomes a tragedy. But if you do, it becomes a lesson. And lessons lead to growth. Catch your negative thoughts. Hold them to the light. Ask, is this helping me? If the answer is no, rewrite it. Not with lies, but with useful truths. The goal isn't delusion. The goal is momentum. And every time you reframe a failure, you rob it of its power to define you. That's how you begin to reprogram your identity. One better story at a time. In a study, underperforming students were taught a powerful truth that intelligence isn't fixed, that the brain can grow, that effort rewires capacity. And what happened next was remarkable. Grades rose, confidence returned. Because belief creates action, action creates identity, and identity reinforces belief. That's the loop. But this loop can spiral up or down. If you believe you're a failure, you'll hesitate, you'll play small, and your results will prove your belief right. But if you believe improvement is possible, even if you don't feel ready, you'll act. And each action lays a brick in your new identity. It doesn't require perfection. It requires consistency, small wins, repeated efforts, day after day. Eventually, those tiny acts of discipline compound into confidence, into character, into self-respect. And suddenly, you're not just pretending to be different, you are. You don't need to transform overnight. You just need to act in alignment with who you want to become. Behavior precedes belief. The cycle is real. And if you don't control it, it controls you. So build your loop intentionally, stack the habits, keep showing up, and become the person who no longer doubts if change is possible because you're living it. You're not stuck because you're broken. You're stuck because you've stopped moving. The barrier isn't the world, it's your belief that you're powerless. But you're not. You've just forgotten that action is always within reach, even now, even here. The exit? It's not locked. It never was. But it does require something from you, a decision, a shift in perspective, a refusal to let your past dictate your identity. You failed. So what? Everyone does. What matters is whether you stand up again, whether you write a better ending. Start with one step, read one page, go for one walk, have one difficult conversation,